Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we prepare to get rowdy. I'm Nate, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Wendy, and a special guest today, Bill. We're three friends sitting around a virtual table, talking Linux, open source tech, gaming, and everything in between. We keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, assuming we even have a topic, and we have fun doing it. This week, we're spotting off about technical liabilities in our home labs. Let's get into episode 90. With me today, I've got two of the most beautiful people on all the internet. I got Wendy and Bill. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Pretty gosh dang good today, yeah.
Always nice to be back with you guys.
I know, it's been
nice
forever. Yeah, it's been forever since we've had you on, and forever since I talked to you. We were talking about that before the show started. We used to see each other all the time in the Open SUSE bar, and I haven't had time to join. I don't know if you've had time to join, and so, yeah, it's been forever.
I did a lot of traveling sort of in the first part of the year. I'm not doing any more traveling now, which is nice. I get to enjoy summer and fall at home and with my friends, both virtual and physical, with my dogs, with my wife, and hang out with my coworkers. So it's good to settle back into a more rooted routine here at home.
Slightly calmer. Work's still crazy, but at least you're not traveling the country.
Correct. For now.
For now. Yes. For now.
That's great. So why are you not traveling right now? It's just like because it's the time of year?
During the summertime, as we kind of approach the end of the school year, I have a lot of work to do to kick off the summer projects that we have going on for our school clients. One school, we are actually having the entire building rewired. So this was a school that is rather old. So they added onto the building, and added onto the building. And so the wiring is a little not ideal. And it's caused issues with Wi-Fi, with security cameras, with phones. And luckily enough, the school is able to find the money to have the entire building rewired, have the server room relocated to an area that makes more sense, that's more central to the building. We have another network we're going to be replacing, and then the usual device cleanup, inventory, make sure that everything's ready to go for the beginning of the school year.
Perfect.
Gotcha. What are you using for, like a Chromebook, or what? Are you have something that you built, like some sort of what do you use there at the school?
The end user devices are all Chromebooks, and that's just because that's the way that things are set up in our state. We have resources that are readily available for teacher training. There's monitoring on the devices. They're obviously affordable, and the curriculum's already written. All we have to make sure is that
that's the case for most states, to be fair. I actually use a website to buy different activities, curriculum, and stuff for the kids. And I find in a lot of cases, a lot of them have two different versions anymore, where you have a straight up PDF version and one that's a Google version that you can just throw into your virtual classroom. Yeah.
When we started rolling out Chromebooks earlier on, we didn't take into consideration that teachers' devices needed to be a little bit more powerful than the student devices. So that has been since remedied. And one of the solutions we've helped some of our schools with is leasing the devices. So what that looks like is every 3 years, you'll trade in X number of devices to get new ones, just like if you were leasing a car.
Right.
And the nice thing about that is you get to stay on top of your hardware, and the devices that the students have taken everywhere and beyond go back to Dell or Lenovo or HP or wherever they've been procured from. And we just keep a refresh cycle going of about every 3 years. Not all of our schools do that, but a good chunk of them do.
That makes sense. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
That's pretty awesome. So I'm going to have some questions for you, but it's probably not show material. So,
I kind of had a hunch that was coming. I had already prepared myself accordingly with extra water with lime to deal with the sour topic of tech liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you need me, you know where to find me.
Yeah. So, as I think I've shared with you already that I got a position as an IT manager. And so when you tell when the school your kids go to find out that you're in IT, all of a sudden things happen. And so, anyway, we'll talk. So Wendy, I guess you have a message for the folks at Destination Linux. Apparently, some feedback on a Lego Spike Prime robot chatter they were having.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they actually had some feedback come into episode 371 of Destination Linux, where one of the listeners, Phil, said that a child of his, now I'm not sure if the kid is actually going to be on a robotics team, if the teacher's going to be using it in the classroom. None of that was really made clear, but they were wanting to check out the application specifically from Lego, and they were struggling to get it to work. So they did figure out, at least the DL team, that you can use it on a Chrome-based web browser, but you can't use it in Firefox. And unfortunately, I have to say that's the way it works across the board as far as applications go. So if he would like to get in touch with me or get back in touch with them, I'd love to hear more exactly what his child is going to be doing with the Spike Prime robots at school. I have a really good feeling that they are starting an FLL team, which I have now done that for 3 years. We'll be going into our 4th season this year, and I'm super excited. I absolutely love this program, but I understand what he's saying, where it is frustrating trying to get this to work on things other than Windows, Mac, Chromebook, that kinds of thing. And actually, we are a step forward with this web-based application. So in the previous version of the Spike Prime stuff, I think we're on version 3 right now, but in the version 2, you didn't have the availability to use it in a web browser. You had to use it in one of their applications if you were using their official one, which is frustrating because even though a lot of their software, the firmware is got some open source parts of it, their application didn't. And Pybricks is another awesome way to go about using these. It's actually what we've been using with the team for the last 2 years. I've talked about it on the show before, but Pybricks is an open source project which you can write in Python, MicroPython code, which is fantastic. And they've recently come out with a blocks version of the code. Now you have to either be a supporter or grab a license in order to use it, which I find great. They are finding ways in order to support this open source project by saying you want to use this version, then grab a license, be a Patreon supporter, something like that. Totally in support of that. I've talked to those who are developing the project. They're absolutely fantastic. Now, you still have to do this from a Chrome-based browser. And some of that has to do with the communications. I should have grabbed a hub before we got started. But some of it has to do with that Bluetooth communication between the hub and your web browser. The Google Chrome lets you turn that on so they can talk to each other and you can write code and send it over through the web browser. And apparently that's harder or something in Firefox. I wish I could use it in Firefox too. I've got the kids using it in Chromium. That works absolutely fine. You don't have to use 100% Chrome. You can use Chromium. You can use some of those other Chrome-based browsers, not Firefox. I get it as a Firefox user, right?
So just on that little tidbit, there are certain applications like web-based flashes for like ESP32s, like ESP Home Flasher. Now, I prefer the Python version over the web version because the web version doesn't have all the features I want. But you can flash things from the web, like WLED flashes from the web, no problem. Really easy to do, barely an inconvenience, and you have to use a Chromium-based browser. So Edge, Chrome, Chromium, whatever.
Right.
And it works really well. So, I mean, it's not that there's some other capabilities they've baked into Chrome, probably because of its Chrome OS lineage
That's a
or
good
tie-in,
observation.
that they
Yeah.
probably have added these things into it so you can do these other actions. So it's just something I think, the customer, Google, wanted specific features, and so that's why it's in there. So it's not, I don't think
Right.
it's not, it just hasn't been baked into Firefox. And so if there was a Firefox OS, which actually there was at one time, that ran on, real cheap, horribly keyboard laptop type devices, that would probably be, a capability as well.
And maybe that's something that we as Firefox users need to give feedback on. Hey, we absolutely love this browser, but can you add this functionality into it so that we can use these other web-based applications on Firefox? I think that's absolutely something we should do. And you can use the Lego devices not on a Chrome-based browser, and that's if you want to decide to use Visual Code Studio or VS Codium. I prefer the open source version, so the VS Codium. And there is a Lego extension, and I checked on it today, and it is updated. So that first year that I had the kids starting with Python code, this is exactly how we were doing it, is they were able to use the stock firmware on their hub and code in VS Codium using this Lego extension and still be able to communicate with those two devices. It does take a little extra work. You do have to spend some time making sure that you have on the back end access for that hub in order to communicate, where that's already taken care of if you're using the web browser. Now, the web browser version does sometimes have some extra things you need to add, but they have it very, very well laid out. So if you're someone who wants plug and play, I'd say go with Lego. If you want almost plug and play, go Pybricks. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic open source project. And if you want them to learn in a more, I guess you would say, typical standard coding application, VS Codium is absolutely fantastic, and the Lego extension works great. My favorite part about using VS Codium is I had it set up through SyncThing. That folder that the kids were saving those files to was automatically backing up over SyncThing. The biggest downside to me of Pybricks over VS Codium is you have to manually download those files at the end of the day. If you're saving them into a folder that is then syncing up to SyncThing or whatever you want to do, that's the thing. But you have to remember to have the kids reminded or being part of their routine to, at the end of the team meeting, the end of the school day, whatever, to download that file. We've had situations where something happens to a computer, and if they hadn't have backed up their code, then we would have completely lost it. Because it's not like at that point that I can go in with a USB, boot up another version of Linux and pull it off the hard drive. No, all of that, it's saved in the memory. And there might be files that you can pull it from Chrome somewhere saved in that memory, that cache. But it's definitely harder to get to than just throwing a USB on. So if you're using Pybricks, which, like I said, I highly recommend, it's been a fantastic, fantastic project for my kids to use. And the FLL team next year is definitely going to be a younger team, most likely. And so we'll still be using Pybricks, but we're going to drop them down to the drag and drop block version. This is the thing that I absolutely...
Or is it something else?
Yes. Well, it's their version of Scratch, I would say, because they've wrote their own blocks. And what I love about their own blocks is they still have a comment block, which was one thing I did not like about the Lego version of the drag and drop block. You couldn't label, hey, this is this mission, which is so important if you're going back to edit things, is having those comments, having things labeled. What does this mean? So Pybricks does have those comment blocks in their drag and drop. And the other thing that they have in their documentation is not only do you have the block and what it does, you have a one-to-one to what that would be in their Python code. So as the kids are learning how to code with the drag and drop method, you can also be teaching them Python alongside of it so they can see what that's going to look like as they advance and their typing skills get a little bit better and they're ready to go. When you're dealing with 10 and 11-year-olds, their typing isn't all that fast. Even when we were having some older kids, their typing isn't all that fast. And so the drag and drop method just works faster. We can get more code done than the hunt and peck typing out method. And when you're dealing with smaller kids and our time together is shorter, that drag and drop is going to be excellent. So get a hold of me, Phil. Let me know what's going on. Maybe I can talk to you about these different versions. We have 3 regular Spike Prime hubs and 1 of the smaller Spike Prime hubs at the house, just because not only, do my kids use them for robotics team, I find them to be fantastic learning tools here at the house. My son has built all kinds of things out of Legos with the robot. Fantastic tools. I know they're a little bit more expensive. If you would like to go the Mindstorm route instead of the regular Spike Prime, they're the exact same hub. They look different as far as color goes. You can still use Pipebricks on either one of them, but that is a cheaper option. They come with smaller parts. You can always upgrade more parts later, but hit me up. Let me know. They're fantastic.
See, in my mind, I'm imagining your son is a little bit like a Doc Brown and is making like automatic dog food feeders, from like what you saw in the beginning of Back to the Future.
He hasn't made automatic dog food feeders, but I mean, there's all kinds of things. The one thing I'll tell you later on after the show that he's made, but it's just kind of crazy the way he's seen stuff and then he's deconstructed the way it works and made it out of Legos. And I'm like, holy cow, kid, you definitely have an engineering head on your shoulders. Definitely.
That's very cool. And I think you should be an excited mother, because that means he's going to do some problem solving for you when you really need it in the future. You've made a great investment, Mom.
I'm being as nice as I can so that, he helps me solve problems later down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was going to say, be careful that he's actually solving problems and not creating more problems.
Okay, so there are features.
To be fair,
and bugs.
he is 14. We haven't had too many problems yet. To be fair, I can say with the teenagers that I have now, 17 and 14, life is probably about as easy as it can get with teenagers. I'm not complaining.
That's a great thing.
Having worked in a high school for many years, I can say that you have found a unicorn.
I know what I was like as a teenager, and I am so thankful every day that I don't have kids that are me.
I think about that too. I am glad. They can do better.
Now, one thing that, yes, definitely. One thing that Bill can be super excited about is a new dog in the house. I have gotten to see your, I wouldn't say original puppy, but one that you've had for a very long time. And so now you've got 2 in the house, not just a foster dog, but this one is here to stay.
So we actually have 3 dogs. The one that you have seen the most, the white one, Sully, he is obviously still around and quite happy. Millie is a little bit older than him, and Millie kind of likes to just sleep on the bed and make sure that it doesn't levitate and float away out of the house.
That's good. That's a valuable chore that Millie's
very valuable chore. She also ensures that the clocks in the house work properly, because promptly at 9:30 she will be asking to be fed. So this is how I ensure that I don't actually need a time server for my networks or my house. I just kind of wait for the dog to appear, and that Millie tells us, you need to feed me now or I'm going to throw a temper tantrum.
How did you train the dog to do that? Or is it all just self motivated?
I feel like the dog came pre-programmed that way.
Okay, all right. So it's part of the baseline
the cats
program.
Don't do that.
That was part of her firmware.
But as I'm going to get my coffee in the morning, they're all circling me because they know I'm the one who usually feeds them. So I can't leave the room with my coffee until they are fed.
If I stay in my office for too long past when it's time to feed the dogs. They will start running up and down the stairs. They will run onto the futon behind me, and they will throw temper tantrums until they are fed.
They know it's dinner time.
That's why they were fed before we started recording, so that they would not be barging into the office during the recording session.
That was well
But
planned.
yes, it was for once. But yes, we do have a new dog. Her name is Grace. She's about a year old, and she is here to stay.
One.
She's extremely smart. She is also another rescue dog that we got out of a local shelter. And she's just learning how to be a dog at this point. She runs around the yard. She listens to commands. She takes training pretty well.
Nice.
And she's slowly learning to like her siblings. We're working on that a little bit and making sure that we understand that they are friends and not food.
Yes.
Because at her age, everything is... Yeah, that might have been in a movie somewhere. I can't remember which one, but Grace thinks that it's that we're food, that her canine siblings are food. We've not introduced her to the feline siblings.
Everything. Yeah.
To a point, if you tell her stop, she will stop. She will behave herself. But she can go and fetch a ball and bring it back to you. She's very happy to do that. But she's also a dark dog. She's very kind of like dark brown, like a cup of black coffee almost.
Yeah.
And so in the summertime, as it's been rather warm here in New England recently, we found that she's getting pretty warm pretty fast. So when I'm working from home, which I do sometimes, and I'm under my patio umbrella, I always make sure that their bowl is filled with water and ice, and they have a bed that sits kind of underneath another umbrella. So they'll take turns going to the bed or going to the back of the yard, which has shade, but it's nice to take her around. Everybody's loved her so far. My friend and fellow Pseudo Show podcast co-host Neil, who does come and visit here from time to time, was last found snuggling with Grace on the couch when he came to visit me a couple of weeks ago. So Grace knows how to make friends pretty quickly.
By choice? By choice or under duress?
By choice.
Oh, okay. All right. Sometimes
she's a snuggly puppy
insist.
then, huh? Yes, sometimes dogs insist. Yes.
Well, when we got Grace, she was a bit underweight. She was actually significantly underweight. So we had to put some meat on her bones, but she thinks that she is a very tiny dog when she's not. So if you have a lap that's available, she will find a way to snuggle with you. And if you have a blanket over you, she will find a way to dive underneath that blanket because she likes to be warm and snuggly. So
oh, how fun.
She's provided us plenty of laughs.
That's awesome.
That's good. How long have you had her now?
We got her the middle of January.
Okay, so for a few months then.
Yep, she's been. So generally when you rescue an animal like a dog, there's a rule of threes, they say. You know, you take 3 days to kind of let the dog decompress from being out of a shelter. You give the dog 3 weeks to get adjusted to your routine and your lifestyle, and then 3 months to really have the dog fully understand that they're part of your family. So when you rescue or adopt a dog or even foster a dog, you have to give them that time to acclimate and adjust. It's not an overnight process. And Grace is still in adjusting to some things and changes in routines and us going away on vacation or me traveling for work. And you just
kind of throws things off a little bit sometimes. Yeah.
It does throw things off a little bit with her. And we just have to teach her that we always come home.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The funniest thing I've had with her so far is the smart smoke detectors that I have will do a monthly test. And I haven't been home during that test, except last week when they went off. And I thought I had a pack of wolves in my living room.
Oh, no.
Howling like I have never heard in my life.
That's a good thing because it means that smoke detector test also worked.
The smoke detector test worked. It also means that my analog smart speaker is tied into Home Assistant somehow in the form of a dog that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, it was another
So
feature.
was it just her? Or was
Just
it
her.
all of them? Just her.
Just her. The other two could have cared less.
Probably because they've been around it more, huh?
They have. They've been around.
How long
So
has that system been in?
8 years.
Oh, yeah. So plenty of time for them to know what it's going on. Yeah,
Right.
it's not that big of a deal to them.
And it's not a loud one either. It's just a quick beep beep. But the howl went off as if the fire engine had gone by.
Wow. That's fantastic. So now you have a
Well,
double safety net.
Yes. Correct. Yes, you can take note that if the fire alarm ever really does go off, that she'll be in the middle of your bed letting you know it's time to get up.
We'll know. We'll know very quickly. Very quickly.
So you're talking about the fact that you were tidying things up for summer. You said that school is almost out. Do you still have some schools running this late in the year?
So
I mean, you are in the East, and
we
they
are
do
in the
things
East.
different than out here in the West.
Yes, very much so. I do know from some friends that live in Colorado that school starts and ends much earlier. Same down in Florida. Here in my area of New England, school starts at the end of August and gets out around the middle of June, providing that there haven't been a lot of snow days. But where I grew up, it's even later. We start after Labor Day and get out at the end of June. And that's because,
moly.
yes, but that's because I grew up in a very summery, touristy kind of area. So from basically Memorial Day through Labor Day is when all the tourists are there. And mainly the high school students take up a lot of jobs at ice cream shops or restaurants or wherever else to support the tourist industry.
See, all the schools around here are out by the end of May. Nobody goes into June in Idaho anyway, at least my part of Idaho. So we typically start the end of August, first part of September, depending on the school in my area. Everybody's always out by the end of May.
You must have less breaks in your school year than we do.
I don't know exactly what that schedule looks like as far as breaks goes, but they usually get like one big break, which is over that holiday season. So they get a little bit more time for Thanksgiving. Christmas and New Year's are kind of tied into one much longer vacation. And then they usually get a spring vacation or kind of a spring vacation kind of thing. They get an extra week off. So, I mean, there isn't too many. Typically, they do have some snow days calculated into that, but it has to be like some serious snow for school to get canceled. Now, that did happen this last year when Snowmageddon hit, and nobody was expecting it because it'd been a pretty mild winter until, holy crap, we got a ton of snow just before we went to FLL State, which those roads were nasty and school was out for a week, but that didn't even extend the school for them. Like that was still calculated into their days.
So when you say a ton of snow, I want to know what the definition of ton of snow is out where you are.
So for us, it wasn't necessarily the amount, but the roads were frozen. You couldn't see the road because you were playing Find the Road because the wind was going so fast. During that week for us this last year, I was almost in a wreck at least twice less than a mile from home. One, when I was almost taken out by the trailer of a semi-truck. It's a 90-degree corner. I was going around the bottom of it as the truck was coming around the top, and the trailer on the back of it started sliding into me. And I'm like, hang on, kids, we're hitting the gutter. And, you know, I was driving a 4x4 at the time, so we were able to go in and out of it without actually having to have somebody pull us out. And then the other time was I'd rounded the corner just as the gust of wind hit, and you couldn't see the road. Like, you literally could not see the road. And I love playing Find the Road. It's my favorite game. Not. So that's what we were dealing with in January this year.
I will say driving a truck is way less of a white knuckle ride than driving a minivan in the wintertime in Michigan. So in Michigan, you know, if you have a truck, like a 4-wheel drive truck, whatever, that's got, you know, good amount of weight, then, you know, you're fine. No problem. Just, you know, maybe don't end up in a ditch that's too deep, but yeah, you're all right. In a minivan, you know, especially with all these like all the new technology or whatever, I get near a drift and the brakes will engage automatically because it thinks I'm going to hit something, And so not good for wintertime driving in Michigan because drifts are just a part of life.
That's what I don't like about the newer cars. That's what I
And there's
don't
no way
like
to
about
disable
the newer
that.
Cars. That's not so fun. So it definitely wasn't our highest snowpack year. We had years, especially when I was a kid, where the snow was over the height of our car. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily a high snowpack year, though we did get a lot of moisture for the desert, but most of it came in rain because we were just above freezing. So it would rain instead of snow.
I'm not sure which
except
is
for
worse,
that time
honestly.
period. Yeah. I mean, it was nice. It was nice and not nice at the same time because the air and the moisture, or the moisture in the air, no, let me get that right, was high enough that it felt colder than it actually was. Though I think both of you deal with high moisture content on a regular basis. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that in Idaho.
Yeah.
I went to vacation in Arizona a few weeks ago and spent a week between Phoenix and Sedona. Just lovely, lovely area. And I landed back here in Connecticut and I stepped out of the airport and the humidity just hit me in the face. And it reminded me, I really need to build a weather station so that I can get alerts when I'm going to be pummeled in the face by overly moist air. I wasn't sweating. I was condensing as if I was a walking air conditioner. And that took a couple days to get used to once I landed.
After being in the very, very dry Nevada or Arizona. Which one were you at?
Arizona.
Yes, much, much drier.
So yes, summertime is a busy time for me. We're getting everybody prepared. We will do all the power washing of the Chromebooks. And the joke is that we actually use a power washer. That's what we tell the administrators when we use the term power washing. What does that mean? Well, we take the an actual
sanitize.
Pressure washer out and we really blast it down. Oh, really? No. We don't have that. Do not attempt to power wash a Chromebook with a power washer. I do not recommend that. That is not endorsed.
It will die.
It will die a very, very sad death.
It probably would tear the keys off. I think that'd be a little casualty. As long as you don't turn it on and you take the battery out, I think it'd be okay.
We have toyed with the idea of doing things like that with the old and dead Chromebooks as a means of venting our frustrations out with our technical liabilities, as the title of the show states. But nobody's found the power washer, the hose outlet to the building, or the time to do it.
We've got a power washer, so next time you're headed this way, stop in Idaho. We'll take it into the front yard. We'll have a blast power wash and some Chromebooks and...
I mean, I have one at my house now. I just don't really feel like trucking it to the office and finding it missing a short time later.
Yeah, although that makes sense.
One of the guys that works for me, who's a big Home Assistant junkie, has said, well, we could, put a SB32 home device somewhere in the middle and figure out how much CFMs are getting pushed through the system. And we could make a smart display that has the PSI output of it. And we could really have a lot of fun with this. And I told him that he needs a hobby.
He does have a hobby. It's the Home Assistant.
Oh, I'm well aware, because when we installed it in our office now, it's smart enough to know when I open the door to the storage room, and it tells me to exit the storage room in a not so friendly manner. But when other people go into the storage room, it doesn't do that.
This reminds me, I don't know if you ever watched this show. It's actually probably one of my favorite sci-fi TV shows of all time, but Eureka. It reminds me of Sarah, the smart house. I think does Nate get what I mean? No,
I've
you
never
don't know
seen
that one. Okay.
No.
So I think it only ran for 5 seasons, and the first 3 seasons are definitely the best. But there is a smart house called Sarah, and that's totally something that Sarah would do. Yes.
Well, I just appreciate the fact that Bill has somebody that trolls him at work. Like, to me, that just sounds like it just sounds like, the stars are aligning, or is it the planets? I don't know. But the fact that somebody does that, I don't know this person, but they are immediately my friend.
I have never been known to prank my employees.
Never.
I may have never switched out the K-cups for decaf.
Oh,
How dare you?
oh my gosh.
I would never do such a thing on April Fool's Day or change the hold music to a certain Rick Roll hold music. I would never do anything like that. I just remember the technician, the senior engineer coming into my office with his empty pot of coffee that he would drink straight out of it with this sad look in his face. And he said, I thought you liked us. And then left.
So I totally understand what he's saying, because like kind of what you did is pretty crappy. I mean, that's kind of a low blow.
Apparently his employees don't read the top of the K-Cups, because had they would have known that they were decaf.
Unless he didn't have decaf at all, and then he just snuck it in there, swapped it out. They're not paying attention. They just grab coffee. That's what I do. You know, I just say, oh, that's the donut blend.
No,
Okay,
I
fill it
always
in there.
read it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is, man, Bill, that's pretty dirt. Now, I tip my hat to you, good sir, but that is dirty.
What I was doing was helping them realize the strength of their inner mind and their ability to overcome adversity.
So as someone who is ADHD and uses caffeine to calm myself, then you would have someone like extra hyper and unfocused on your hands.
I already knew that day was a complete loss
Yeah.
when I did that. And I was expecting retribution, which was given to me when I went on vacation. And now every time I go on vacation, some sort of catastrophe happens in my office. And this year was no different.
I think that's
take it in
just
stride.
par for the course when you're the manager, because every time my husband is away, like the major clients that he fixes things for, like something always breaks down. Like he always comes home from Nevada being like, originally, I'm just going to come straight home. It's fine. No, never mind. I have to go see so-and-so and so-and-so, and then I'll be home. Yeah, I think that's just the life as a manager or someone that other people rely on in general. Stuff's going to happen when you're away.
Like taping the rollers of the chairs underneath so if this is where the wheel well is of the chair, taping the wheel inside the wheel well of the chair so that, you know, the chair doesn't feel quite right when I go to move it and I can't figure it out. Well, I'll deal with that later. So how long did it take? How many days did it take you to figure that one out? About 2. Well done. That's an original one. Put that in the book.
That one, that one's good. I like that. Huh?
But what we have been doing at one of the things we have been working on is how do we leverage Home Assistant with our customers as they implement more IoT. It doesn't have to necessarily be Home Assistant. It can be Work Assistant. And I've had a couple of people say, I'm getting quoted 6 figures for this smart management system that will control the lights and the cameras and everything. And I've shown up to a couple of places, one being a nonprofit with a little mini refurb Lenovo workstation, less than $500 on Amazon, running Home Assistant with an app and saying, look, I can now tell you when one of your windows was open. And now you'll get a motion sensor alert from your camera when a student decides to try to climb out the window. This particular location is a dormitory, so they need to know things like that.
They need to know things like that. Well, and Home Assistant is something, an open source version is definitely one that I have thought about implementing in the house and just have never gotten around to doing it yet. So I'm definitely interested in one, Nate's experiment, which seems to be going pretty well with his house. And then how you are handling it for some of those other clients. Are you using open source options for them? You are.
We are. So we are one of the person in Nate that you said is your new friend is a fan of the SB Home and SB32 projects. And he has been showing me how SB32 can be used for a wide variety of things. And we actually have a project we may be pitching to a potential manufacturing client of how they can monitor the
Ooh.
processes of
Nice.
their manufacturing plant with some RS-232 commands.
Nice.
We may find an interface for that, build something custom for them using SB32 and a Home Assistant or Grafana type dashboard and seeing if it works. I mean, there's very little money to invest up front if it doesn't work. Worst case scenario, we have fun and we create SB32 devices that make fun around the office for ourselves.
Yeah. Yes.
But we're still in the middle of renovations. We've been putting up new cameras for our parking lot. We've been a big fan of the Unify product for years, and they just came out with a really nice update for version 4, which has made our lives much better when trying to replay events remotely, like a bear wandering through our parking lot, trying to get into the dumpster, or confused FedEx drivers that are trying to deliver packages to the wrong place. Or actually, what did we see the other day? We saw 2 deer walking through the backyard towards the stream.
Awesome.
Now, before the update, it was, we can't really see it and can't tell what it is. And with this new update, it's very clear. It's very easy to play back. So we've been very happy with that.
So is that the biggest difference in the upgrade, is just being able to see things clearer, better? Is this an upgraded camera itself, so you've bought new hardware, or is it an upgrade in the software that's made the difference?
So we upgraded the software on the recording device, which the cameras are tied to. That pushed then a firmware update to all the cameras on our camera network.
Okay.
And once they all rebooted, we logged back in and we noticed a quality change in the live view. So I can sit at my desk and I can watch the front camera with the cars going by down the road. And instead of seeing like every 3 to 5 frames, I'm seeing a lot more frames. It's a much smoother,
awesome.
It's a much smoother live view. But more importantly, the playback is much, much cleaner. And when you are in a school or you're in a business and you're trying to investigate something that happened on your premises, you need to have good, clear playback to come to the final conclusion of what really happened.
You don't want to be filling in gaps that you shouldn't be filling in. You don't want to be like, correct, I think this is what's going on. It's nice to have that cleaner feedback. And that's awesome that hardware is pushing out software updates that give you more flexibility, better use of that hardware.
My favorite feature is that it can decipher the difference between a person, a vehicle, and an animal. So now if an animal walks by, it tags it with a little paw print. That's my favorite feature.
That is cool. Absolutely.
And that's the Unify camera system. I just looked at the prices. They seem very reasonable. I mean, the cameras for the plant I work with the company we use for security, and they're very well entrenched in the company, so it's not like I'm going to go in there and make changes. But we're talking 4 figures for cameras there, but they also have to be like hazardous rated and everything else too. So I don't know if that's part of it. But the fact that, I mean, it looks like some of these cameras I could camera up my entire property for not a whole lot, relatively speaking, I think. So.
Very simple, very straightforward.
And then integrations with Home Assistant with that.
Yes.
Hey, Bill.
Awesome.
We will be in touch, my friend.
Because the thing is around the house, I would love to have the adjustable lights. And it's not that I need the RGB stuff. I would like the ones that change color from I would like the ones that change color from the more daylight to warm. Though it would be nice to have some Bluetooth speakers around the house for like music that we're playing or that kind of thing. And the ones I have been using are controlled with a remote. I have showed them on here before. So these ones are a GE that have this little handy remote. And they're nice. But it would be nice if everything in the house went from that daylight during the day to kind of softer at night as we're trying to get everybody to bed. That kind of like natural color changes. I mean, if we're having fun, right, it would be nice to just throw a party in the house and be able to set some fun colors every now and again. I know my youngest child likes to come in, play with the remote, and change the lights in my bedroom to the rainbow vomit where they'll cycle through and all of that.
So because I can go Fedora Blue, I can go OpenSUSE Green.
You're doing it now.
Not that we have anybody that uses OpenSUSE.
Never. And I would wear a green polo.
Right. Why would you do that?
Never.
I could go red for my red hatters. I could go to purple if I felt like it, or I could just go back to my normal white. I can set it to hospital white if I want to. That's what I call this look. I don't like that very much. It is rather clinical.
A lot harsher. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot harsher. I only use that when I'm in those like late night moments when I'm dealing with a work fire and I have to turn everything bright so that I don't fall asleep. And then the routine kicks on at, before bedtime that dims all the lights and makes it ready for bed. And I'm still trying to work and it's conflicting.
I know I should be going to sleep right now, but I'm not.
My watch is telling me you really need to be, going to bed. Why are you still working?
Right.
See,
you don't understand what I'm dealing with right now. I've got to restore from backups.
For the most part, I've reworked my schedule that I'm not burning the candle at both ends. I definitely have had the days where I'm in bed at 2 a.m. and then the kids are up or my husband's having to leave for Nevada at like 4 a.m. and then that I'm up and going. I've tried to convince him, hey, if mom went to bed at 2, let's not be asking questions at 6 a.m. It's really not the best for our safety. Mom might be a little bit snappy, a little bit crazy. She hasn't had enough sleep. Just letting you know. But I've kind of got that figured out. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not burning the candle at both ends anymore. But I could definitely see that being an issue is the house lights are all turning down. They're getting ready for bed. And you're like, but I can't sleep. I've got work to do.
Well, speaking of fun projects, Nate, it looks like you've been messing around with a Chromebook. Trying to get it to do some fancy things.
Not actually me. So there's a bit of a story here. So some years back, I don't remember exactly when, but it was for as part of I used to help when I worked for Uncle Sam for the DoD about getting Linux and the smart card reader to work nicely together, and so I did a lot of that. So I got a Chromebook so I could just test the Chromebook, and then the Chromebook was okay. I didn't like the keyboard; the touchpad was kind of wonky. It was a Dell Chromebook 11 Candy was the model. And anyway, so it became unsupported several years ago, and I kind of used it a little bit, but not really because it was unsupported, and it really, it was just I just didn't feel good about using it. Anyway, I looked at putting Linux on it, and I went through. It was like Mr. Chromebox is the name of the website that has the information. And I read through a little bit. I'm like, you know what? This is more than I can really deal with right now. I kind of started the process and I abandoned it, saying, I got other things to do. I don't feel like doing this. It's not that it was like beyond me necessarily, but it was just like I didn't have the headspace for it. You know what I mean? So I shelved it and basically put it on the shelf, let it die. And about 2 weeks ago, my oldest son, he gets the Chromebook out of a neoprene case I left it in, and he says, "Hey, can I play with this?" I'm like, "Sure, it's out of date. Can't really do. I mean, if you want, I don't care." And then he says, "Can I put Linux on there?" I'm like, "Well, see, here's the thing. It's a pain in the butt. You got to get past all this. Like, you got to put it in a developer mode, and then which I had it already that way once. Says then you got to go through and you have to put it so it's not write protected. There's a screw for that in there, and then you got to do like flash or firmware. There's so many steps in this process." I said I wouldn't even bother. I mean, it just seemed like too much work for me. So he decided that he wanted to do that. He says, "Well, if I brick it, is it? Are you gonna be mad?" I'm like, "No." I said it was essentially dead as far as I'm concerned anyway. So have at it. Anyway, so he comes back. He says to me later. He says something to the effect of, "How do I set up the partitions? Like, what's the best way to set the partitions?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" And so I go there, and he's got the thing. He's installed, or he went through the process of removing the write protect on it. He put in developer mode. He flashed new firmware on it so he could install whatever he wanted, and he had OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. He's a he's the apple of my eye, that boy. And he was in the process of installing OpenSUSE, and he just asked about the partitions. So did that, went through, got it going, and he was a little disappointed. There was only like 15 gig of RAM of storage on there, and so and the battery didn't work. And it was successful, and it actually runs really well. I mean, the synthetic like CPU benchmark on it's like 600 something on there, like 632, so it's really, really low. But Plasma works fantastic. It's smooth on it. It's totally smooth. Running
Nice.
Wayland and everything else, not a problem. Doing web stuff, I mean, obviously it's slower. And going from my framework here, which is over a 20,000 synthetic benchmark score, to 600, obviously you feel it. It's definitely something you notice. But if I want to like sit in bed and like use it for looking for something or writing, you know what? That thing works perfectly. Now Chromebooks have a stupid keyboard layout, which I don't like. But that aside, for like non-real critical tasks, it works great. I got an official Dell replacement battery on eBay for it for like $8, and the thing lasts like 9 hours on a charge, which I don't know how it can do that, but it does. And so you just use it like a Chromebook, essentially, but with more useful. And I would say in some ways it runs better, but that was a pretty old version of Chrome OS at this point, and this is a newer version of Plasma and OpenSUSE. So yes, very impressive. One, I told him, I gave up on it, saying it wasn't worth my time. And so he did, and he asked if he can keep it. And I says, no, I'm taking that back now. I really like it. I said, and he says, so he started negotiating with me that I should, compensate him. And so what do you want? He says, well, I really want a framework. I'm like, well, it's not worth that much to me.
Oh.
So anyway, I was really impressed. I'm very proud of him. I mean, he took the initiative to do it himself. He asked for very little help. Between like reading stuff and watching videos on YouTube, he figured it out, did all the hard stuff, and just had questions about, how the partition should be laid out. So that was it.
Honestly,
is awesome.
I was waiting for him to say, by the way, Dad, it runs Arch.
That would have been the cherry on top. I would pay him to tell you that. Yeah.
I don't know if he's really even explored Arch. I mean, I don't think he's a smart kid, so I don't know that he would do that.
I can't tell if you'd be impressed or horrified or somewhere in between.
A little bit of both. Sometimes those are not mutually exclusive. Those that can actually coexist.
Oh, semi-pro tip for you to increase the synthetic benchmark on it.
What's that?
Bigger screen.
What is that? Oh, for what? Getting more.
Well, bigger is better, so it's going to run faster, right?
Of course.
Yeah, there you go.
It's true. And also, if you put like vinyl stickers on it, I think that makes it more powerful too, like, like Fast and the Furious style.
Mm-hmm. Add some rainbow vomit around the outside. There you go. Mm-hmm. Yep. It'll be blazing fast, won't it?
Right.
So you guys keep telling me anyway.
I just like to say it to you because I like to see the cringe on your face. That's the only reason. You can actually the pain is very visible in the through the webcam. So
I didn't realize that I was that readable.
Not always, but when you talk about rainbow vomit, when I suggest it to you, it's very, very readable. You can see it, like you can see the disgust. Just like.
One of the reasons why I did not offer to help Wendy with the Home Assistant setup when she brought it up earlier was because I would have backdoored a way in so that during recording it would go into rainbow vomit mode. And while she's recording, it's just RGB looping the room the whole time.
I'm sorry, we got to end the show right now. There's rainbow vomit everywhere. We'll pick it up again.
Migraine. I just booked a flight to Connecticut and Bill's a dead man.
I might be able to talk to your wife and she could do it for me. I don't know.
That's probably a worse fate for me. So that's another reason why I've elected to not do that. Well, also in the topic of epic failures, as that one would have been, Nate, I understand you have some hardware failures that you're trying to navigate?
So I think one of the things about being a technology enthusiast is you always find a way to like shoehorn in some new technology or build something or whatever. And then when that technology fails, it now becomes a kind of like an emergency, I guess, or like a crisis. Becomes a crisis moment. So as you can probably observe, I am not in Cubicle Labs right now.
Right.
Yes. So what has happened is my Commodore 64 Imposter machine, which I love using, it's been a great machine, but it's had a catastrophic NVMe failure. It's throwing up errors and everything else, so I don't have it on right now, and I'm waiting for some parts. And I'm taking this as an opportunity to do some other upgrades to it as well. And so right now it's down, and so I'm in my home office when I work when I'm in the house. I got an office out there, an office here. That's just the way it goes. And
Right.
here, and so I set up to have like a secondary recording spot anyway, because sometimes there are situations when it'd just be better to be in the house anyway. So like late at night, I might do some like Linux saloons even from here instead. But anyway, that being said, so it just when things like my computer fails, or it's one of my main computers I use that I desperately need. And they have to like compensate around it. It's very it's very disruptive, highly disruptive. And
now, to be fair, this isn't the first time that this computer has had an issue, right? Isn't this the same one that we were almost done with one episode of LOL? And I can't remember what the show number is, but you weren't there for the ending of the show.
Yes.
Because you had a hard shutdown due to a hard drive failure. Is this the same machine?
The other SSD in that machine failed previously.
Ooh.
So
okay.
So I'm not sure, like, if it's. So there could be a couple reasons. One, it is a more compact case, so it does tend to hold heat a little bit more than, let's say, another device. So I'm going to be addressing that as well. I'm get a new cooling fan for it, a Noctua. It's a little bit larger, but it's also low profile.
Love the Noctuas.
And it also might be better for recording too, because it won't make as much noise. So there might be some benefits there as well. And anyway, so just it's like I put this together as a solution to reduce other problems in my life. And then but in and of itself, it creates new problems or different problems. Like right now, I just happen to have another mic that I bought when I was on vacation, expecting we were going to record last week. So it just kind of worked out. I got it for $22. I hope it sounds okay. Things just kind
of fell into the right place.
It
actually sounds pretty good. Things just fell into the right place. You'd rebuilt this kind of in-the-house studio not too long ago. Actually, the last time we talked on the previous episode of LOL, you were talking about the updates to this room. And then you picked up this mic on vacation. Like, even though it wasn't a situation you wanted to be in, you were prepared for it. You were ready to roll.
Right. And then, so that's just one example. And I have another example of a failure as well. So last night, it'd been a long day, worked from home yesterday. And so it literally, it was like let's see, it was probably close to 17 hours behind the computer yesterday. I got back from vacation. Ooh. And so it was just a lot of work, right? It was just a lot. Now, it wasn't like all 17 hours just like cramming away, typing, click, or anything like that. But what it was is, I did take breaks for food and eat, taking care of the animals. I had an animal issue and everything else too. So, and there was some laundry folding in there as well. But so it wasn't like, but it was a full day of doing work and getting things like back organized and everything else. So I getting ready to like watch like a YouTube video. I was going to just kind of relax and kind of like shut down for the night. My internet goes out. And I'm like, what's going on here? I thought, well, I've had issues where I had to just like reboot my access points at these Aruba IAPs. And sometimes like what I'm just will like just go nutty. So if I just get in there and I just rebooted it, and then I had limited or no internet access. And then I had no internet, no access at all. And I'm doing other things to troubleshoot. Well, what had happened was my firewall edge device and this IP Fire device died. Now, to be fair, It was running on a Pentium 4 HT, a 32-bit system that I put together in 2018 because I got a bunch of these computers and I thought, well, I'm going to use it for something. So it's something I built along, some years back. And I had thought, well, I should probably at some point in time, upgrade the hard drive in it because it has a hard drive in it. So it was, it's old. And well, I never did that. And then I really didn't have any problems with it. And the hard drive hasn't failed. It's almost 20 years of running this hard drive now, basically. Still running.
Wow.
Anyway, I happen to have another Dell Pentium Optiplex with a Pentium 4 HT sitting in the back because, of course, I do on a shelf. And so I pull that out, swap the hard drives, move the RAM over, move the other network interface card. It had one of these like other cards and like a graphics card. Don't need that. It's headless. So I pulled that out, did a bunch of, got it. So it was basically matched what it was with the other one. Put it in place, everything powered up. I had to like reassign the green NIC, the green side, and because it's a different MAC address. And so about hour and a half, 2-ish hours later, from the time of having problems to being done with this, so now instead of going to bed early, which I was intending on doing, I was up till about midnight because that's the way the cookie crumbles. But it got me thinking this, having these problems, I love technology. I'm like Kip on Napoleon Dynamite. I love technology. I could sing a song about that. And, but then I sometimes wonder, what would a normal person do with a firewall, edge device, router thing failing? Oh, they probably wouldn't because they go to Comcast or wherever to get their devices and it's off the shelf. It's very simple. They don't have this complex network weirdness that I do because those don't work for me. And so I have a lot of technical liabilities. And I think about that, like, how do I minimize those technical liabilities so that I just don't, and I just have to live with that. That's kind of the crux of it.
I have something for you that will solve your problems. One moment.
All right, salesman Bill, go for it.
I have something right here on my bench because I was cleaning that might actually solve your problem. So for those of you who don't know me that well, you'll know that I have a propensity to procure network devices. So I have recently pulled this. So this is a Lanner FW7525C firewall appliance.
Okay.
And this particular one has run either OpenSense or pfSense. Other things I like to do are take out these kinds of proprietary devices. That one is made by SonicWall and put in some open source solutions. So the next time that you need a device, you can always and see if I have something that you might need. Because I sometimes have these guys kicking around and I can always put it in a box and send it to you.
That's a good point.
Sweet. So that's awesome that you actually had an almost one-to-one comparison that you were able to get things running again. And I understand what you mean that as that just kind of the luck of the draw kind of thing, just as like you were ready for the failure of your C64 imposter because you had this desk already set up. Thankfully, you already had the hardware in stock to replace it really quick. But I think you're right. As we are more, I wouldn't necessarily say tech savvy, but enjoying it and enjoying implementing some of those devices, trying to secure our network a little bit more. We do run into the situations that you have a piece of hardware that fails and then you have to replace it. I haven't had that.
I was going to say Nate, in your case, it's actually better because what most people would have to do is go somewhere off in your big box store, buy a router that may not be the same brand as what they had before, or even the same model that might be compatible. And therefore they have to rebuild their config from scratch.
Ooh,
now, if you don't know what router you typically buy,
I would say they basically
depends.
They set their SSID and that's pretty much all they care about. They just care about my Wi-Fi.
But there could be correct. But now routers are way more advanced. They have guest modes and they have gaming modes. And so if you, for instance, Ubiquiti has a product that's gaming centered called Amplify, and that's got what are called quality of service settings to prioritize game traffic over everything else.
Yeah.
But let's say, you have an Asus N12 router you've had for 10 years and it blows up and you want to move to a Asus 68AX router. Your config won't necessarily move over. You'll have to rebuild from scratch. You'll have to know to go to log in and set it up. If you
Right.
are a parent and you maybe restrict the hours that your kids can access the internet,
Right here.
that in itself doesn't necessarily transfer from router to router. But the way that you're doing it, or with a box like this running pfSense or OpenSense, you can take a backup and you can restore it to anything just about, including a VM.
So right now I am running a Synology router, and I bought it used actually off a listener of Linux Out Loud like years ago, like when we first started doing the show. And I have been considering, hey, it's had quite a few years under its belt. Maybe it's a good time to upgrade the router before it dies, because I definitely don't want to be in one of those situations that it dies. And I'm pretty sure that my Synology has that availability to back up that data. I've never taken data from one Synology router and then put it on another one. I'm not sure how that will work. I guess I should do the research on that and figure it out.
I can tell you on the Synology NAS that if you take your hard drives out and put them into a different unit,
Yeah.
generally it will accept and import your configuration. It will know, hey, these drives are in a different unit. Do you want to go ahead and restore your prior config? Yes. Okay. And then it brings everything back.
Perfect.
But so many of these devices now are what we'll call software defined, that what you define as maybe your WAN interface and your home network interface or your Wi-Fi interface, those are just software objects. So they can be very portable between different hardware devices now. Depends on what you get, but most of the stuff that I work in, I try to set it up that way so that it is recoverable. And yes, I've had to recover pfSense or OpenSense into a VM before because I didn't have a piece of hardware in stock that I needed.
Right.
Not ideal,
but you
but
were
it got
able
me through.
to do that in a VM and still make it work until you had that piece of hardware.
Exactly.
So I have a WatchGuard device. So I work for a company that has, they can't keep hardware after a certain amount of time because of liability, security
reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. So these WatchGuard appliances, there's 3 of them that are have been pulled out. And what I did find on, I can't remember the exact, I was actually looking just now for it, the exact model number on it. But that said, there is a, I read where somebody put pfSense on it. They pulled out some of the proprietary guts. They put in a new drive in there and then added something else. I can't remember what it was. And they use it as their firewall router device. And I thought to myself, brilliant, except you have to install it via terminal or something like that. Or maybe they have to they image the drive before they put it in there, something along those lines. And then they console into it. And so is that what you do for that particular device?
So this one here, this is a console port, much like what a network switch or an enterprise firewall would have. And you connect, you get a console to USB cable, and then you can use, if you're in the Windows world, you use PuTTY, you can use Miniterm in the Linux world. Screen also works, and you set your serial parameters for it, and then it drops you in as if you're watching it boot up. And from there, you can program it the way that you need to.
You said Miniterm. How does that compare to Minicom? Or is it the same thing?
Minicom is more what I meant. Sorry.
Okay, all right. I was going to is there another one?
No, it's Minicom. It's just the end of the day here, and the brain cells are receding slowly into the chair.
It's much later for both of you than it is for me, so I guess I can be thankful for that.
Yeah, so I've used Minicom for configuring Aruba switches at work, just to get whatever, nothing. But I have had issues.
Same thing.
And maybe it's I'm a bit of a doofus here, but it seems like sometimes I have trouble with Minicom freezing up on me, and then the only way to get out of it is to kill console and then log back into it. Should I be using something other than console or something that it would work better with? Or is it just when your session crashes, and, is that all? Is that really what it is? Okay.
That's more or less what it is.
Okay. Because I thought it's really neat because you can set up different profiles for different things to connect to. And it's really easy to just set those up, the baud rates and everything, whatever the parity, is that like N2S or N something? I don't know what it was like. Anyway.
9600 8N1 or 115 200 8N1.
Yeah. That's what it is. And then 8N1. I don't know why I said S. But anyway, there's all these different options, whatever. And then you just, whatever the device is, you got to look it up, figure it out, and then that's how you connect to it. So, anyway, so my thought was, I wonder if I can put OpenSense on this device. Like I'm back and forth between pfSense and OpenSense, depends on who you talk to. It seems like, I don't know. I think I might go with OpenSense because I've done pfSense, I've done IPFire. I haven't done OpenSense yet, so why not?
Why not?
And then, the question comes back to what kind of life do I get out of this before? Just everything's just a roll of the dice. It seems like you got to have another one ready to go, or something else ready to go.
So, how often do they need to upgrade? How old are these devices?
Well, right now they're running WatchGuard on there, and they are, I think, about 10 years old. So I'd be putting a new SSD in there. I'm not going to worry about adding, putting in, some people they rice them out. They put a newer CPU and try to get more performance out of it. But I don't care about that. All I want to do is, if it can compete with a Pentium 4 that's been doing great, then I think we're fine.
Then you're fine. Yeah.
Just make sure that whatever you're using does have SSD trim support.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't, you'll fry the SSD much quicker than planned.
I'm sure everything has SSD trim support at this point. So,
just a good thing to double check before you have them fully upgraded to what you want to do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You can actually just enable it. It's an option in OpenSense. So very cool. Anyway, so just it's one of those things I thought would be fun to talk about. Technical liabilities. These are mine. I don't know how it compares for others. And we've talked about my other, when things go wrong at home.
Yes.
And there's just two things in a span of 2 days.
That are going down. Yeah. Well, and right now, my technical liabilities really lie in my 3D printer. And it's because as my kids are advancing from FLL into FTC, so they had kind of almost, I guess you say, this trial year. This last year of robotics has been just a slow creep into FTC. They weren't competing as much as they will as they join the coils and that kind of stuff. So they've gotten to figure some stuff out along the way. And we're not done with robotics yet. Actually, I don't think we'll ever be done with robotics until my youngest is out of it, graduated, fully done. And then my husband might have to put up with me continuing to mentor for years after all of my kids are done and gone from robotics. But we're coming up on a competition the end of June. And the kids had redesigned a pixel grabber. So I can reshare all of the game stuff with you guys so you can kind of get a feel for it. But this game that they're competing with at the end of June has updated rules. So in the first one, there were 2 boards that you can do pixels on, one for each team, the red side and the blue side. And in this competition, the end of June, they have one in the middle. So both teams can score on the one in the middle, and the white pixels will be marked with a piece of red tape or piece of blue tape. And so you can actually score against yourself. If you're on the red team and you put blue pixels on that board, you're actually scoring for the other team. So because we've had, I guess it's about a month and a half since we actually registered for this competition, the kids have decided that even though they didn't have time to figure things out, get things fully propagated to score on the backdrop during our regular season, they're full force. They're going at it for WMI. So we will be going back to Utah for this competition. And so they did some redesign on their pixel grabber, and I printed that from my home 3D printer instead of the Build Room one, which of course my Endervive Plus takes a little bit longer than, I can't remember what they're running, but it's definitely a much faster Creality printer. And we'd printed it kind of upright so that the pixel space where the pixels slide in, there wasn't the support material on them, but there was support material around where those micro servos go inside. And of course, they're having to do some extra cleanup and stuff on that piece of robot material just to make it so they can get those servos slid in and out. And it's made me decide that I really need to go ahead and get a dual extrusion printer. I need one of those printers that can print the main material and at the same time have like a water soluble breakaway material in order to have much cleaner end parts. And I found 2 different ones I'm interested. So right now I have a Micro Swiss direct drive. I love everything about it except for the fact that loading filament into it is not fun at all. I have to loosen the gears a whole lot. I need to make sure that my filament's cut at the right angle so that I can get it pushed through. Like there is no changing filament on that machine in the middle of a print and actually having things line up properly, whatever. So that's my only downside of that one. If you're looking for a direct hot end, it's great. Just be prepared that loading new filament into it isn't the best experience in the whole world. Now, there is a DIY option. So somebody who has catted and it's rotating. So you have 2 separate hot ends and it swaps between the 2. And it's not a direct offset. You do have to have your Z offset, not Z offset, X offset figured out for it. But it'll swap between the 2 and you don't have 2 filaments coming into the same hot end. I've seen those. I don't like that. I think it's way too easy to end up clogged unless you're running PLA into both or PETG down both sides. It just seems like a way to end up with a clogged hot end. So I would rather have 2 separate hot ends the filament is coming into instead. So there's a DIY option that I found. So essentially it's that swapping mechanism, but you're printing and building out your own hardware. And I found a kit that I really like. I'll link both of them down below. But I know this whole cleanup process is holding us back. And my biggest fear, which I guess would say is my hardware liability, is once you start making changes to your 3D printer, especially where I only have one, until I have it fully updated and running again, we are without a 3D printer. So if there's any parts that are in the line needing to be printed, anything like that, it's kind of the stress of the backup, right? And there isn't going to be a good time to have this machine down because robotics never ends. They're still making changes and they're still updating. So I kind of need to decide, do I go the DIY route? That is definitely cheaper for sure. I can 3D print the parts, though I am going to need a few things. The DIY version definitely says that it's better to use the nylon. I have a case around it. It's a soft one. So at least it's got somewhat of an enclosure. It can hold some heat into it. Nylon in and of itself can be really, really finicky with it coming off the build plate, doing the warping, especially if your fans are on or they're up too high. It can be a big of a pain in the butt. Or do I just go ahead and spend the extra money, buy the kit, get the metal parts, install it? The kit that I found does have awesome stuff to help you upgrade the firmware, whether you're using Marlin or Clipper. I still love Clipper. I'm so glad my system is running Clipper right now. I love how it works. And this kit has software updates for either one of them, letting you figure out, what are those things you need to do. The other downside of the kit, or I guess it's an upside and a downside. So as part of that kit, it's got the laser bed leveler instead of the BL Touch, which I have now. But I also have a glass plate. So you can't use the laser leveler with a glass plate. It has to be a metal build plate. So I have to get a different build plate for it at the exact same time. And just figuring out that route that I'm going to go. And okay, so I'm saying it's for the kids, but really that's the excuse to go ahead and get the parts and update it because
I understand.
I've been thinking about it anyway. They're my excuse. They're my reason for actually buying the parts and getting it done.
It's like why you buy Legos. I buy it for my kids.
Right, yeah, I buy it for my kids. I already know the slicer that I use can handle 2 different hot ends. I use Super Slicer. That one is an open source project. Absolutely love it. So there is a project that Prusa Slicer is based off of, and I can't remember which project that is. And then Super Slicer is kind of based on Prusa, which it's got so many different features. I can set which firmware I'm using, so I can load the Ender 5 Plus inside of Super Slicer and be like, but I'm not using Marlin, I'm using Clipper. It makes it really, really fast and to get up and running if I needed to do a fresh install or whatever. So I know the slicer that I'm using can handle the 2 different hot ends, and then trying to decide between which carbon fiber filament I'm going to use for some of their finalized parts. So before I only knew of nylon with the carbon fiber added to it. The advantage of that one, and the kids have printed stuff with that before from the build room, is it's very light. It still has some really nice strength to it, but you can get PLA and PETG with the carbon fiber as well. And then you're not dealing with the negative finicky issues of nylon. So you can still have maybe some stronger finished parts without the pain of printing with nylon. I don't know if there's anybody out there in LOL land that has printed with these different materials. I would love to hear some feedback from you, because I've watched some YouTube videos of people using some of these different materials, but it would be nice to have some firsthand knowledge for some people who've printed with it. How well does it work?
Right.
How well did those parts held up? I mean, right now, their grabber, I wouldn't say is going to be taking major hits at this time. It's still on that arm that they've had before. I might have to throw some updated pictures of their robot right now, because they do have some of those parts on there, and you can kind of see what that looks like. But for me, I've got some major decisions to make on that 3D printer, and then dealing with the fallout of, okay, trying to get it all up and running before we absolutely have to use it again for robot parts.
Yeah, I've never printed with anything exotic, like with a carbon fiber or anything else in there, or fiberglass. I think sometimes like the print head, they can have some negative effects in the nozzle, I should say. So as far as like it wearing out.
Yes, you have to use the hardened steel. Yep. You have to use the hardened steel with the carbon fiber based ones. Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't have any real experience with that, but those are very interesting. And my big 3D printer trouble that I'm having right now is, one, sometimes no matter what I do, parts just don't want to stick to the glass build plate. And so when you said metal build plate, I think maybe that's something I need to research.
A way to go. I've seen some good ones. I've seen some ones that will fit mine. I think you've got the Ender 3, so it's a little bit easier and cheaper to find ones that fit yours than it is to fit mine. It's really weird. I might also have to share a picture of what that mesh looks like after I've done a leveling, because I've got some weird dips in my bed, and I don't know if it's the reading that's coming that's not quite accurate from my BL Touch, or if my base bed, what the hot bed is attached to, just isn't as smooth and level as it should be. And maybe I should replace that as well. I don't know.
And the other thing too is that there's things I want to print that my printer is just not big enough. So printing it like in 2 sections and then bonding it back together is such a pain. I've been eyeballing another printer, but it's far more expensive. And I think that might be my Christmas present to myself. I might have to like set aside some cash and do that, because there's things like I want to do, but
Mine
I can't.
has a large enough print bed that I haven't had to worry about that. I think mine's the printing surface area is, I think, 350 by 350 millimeters. The build plate itself is closer to like 370 by 375 millimeters. It is definitely a larger build plate in general. So I haven't had to worry about welding parts together for me, because I've also got 400 millimeters in Z height. So size in this one hasn't been too big of an issue, but I could definitely see that being an issue for your under 3.
Yes, there's a framework-based project that I have that I want to do, and it just would be nice. There's actually several. And on another show, we'll talk about this, but I have another CAD application you should try out.
Oh, okay. You've got me seriously intrigued. I know we're running like super late on time. Having Bill here has had,
it would be
fun tech conversations.
It runs in Linux. It's based. It runs in Linux. It's an app image. I think what I'm running is an app image. There's no hassle. It doesn't have all the issues. It's based on FreeCAD, but it's like somebody took FreeCAD and wiped away everything that I hate about it. And I've used it a little bit. I've done quite a bit of it. It's actually parametric. And it's thanks to Linux Saloon that someone presented, I think Sean presented it to me. I think Sean presented it to me. I don't know what his last name is.
Oh, wow.
So, anyway, more on that at another time. I got to do more testing to make sure that I'm not a liar.
So there is a serious teaser. Serious teaser there.
Runs in Linux, great. So,
you're not fair.
So the idea is without internet. Now Onshape is good. Onshape is great. But without internet, I can run CAD
We
locally.
have enjoyed it.
And I think it may be really good. I got to check. I need to do some more designs, and I need to test the assembly aspect of it. I also need to test the importing of other CAD models to see how that, and modifying them.
Right. Yes.
So
see how that works.
So I got a laundry list of things before I come back and give you my full report.
Oh, no. After the show ends, you're definitely going to tell me what that piece of software is, but we can wait for the rest of the crew to figure that out later.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Now, Bill, you have been doing a teardown on your Homelab. Is this just going through and making sure you don't have any failures, this routine kind of maintenance, or has there been problems?
This is more of a routine maintenance thing, and as trite as this sounds, it's mainly to literally physically clean the area, including removing dust, removing spider webs. My Homelab is on the other side of that wall, which is an unfinished basement. So things get into places where they shouldn't. And I am very sensitive to fan noises, meaning when fans start grinding. So if I hear that, I go running out and try to figure out what's wrong. And I looked inside my NAS, and on the side where it says Synology was all covered in dust. And I looked at my watch and said, "Ooh, it's been a while." So I shut everything off. I cleaned it. And of course, the engineer in me says, "Well, this isn't quite good enough. I maybe I need to make some changes," which I'm going to have to make changes anyway, because I'm looking at having a battery put in for energy storage. And that's going to take up part of the space where I have a different workbench. And so I've got to consolidate.
Ooh.
So I'm looking at kind of redesigning things, like what does my power consumption look like? What do I really need for networking? What kind of devices am I plugging in? I have a 8U wall mounted rack above a workbench, but if I want to get up there, I've got to hop up onto the workbench and kind of work at things underneath. So do I want to look at a different rack? Do I want to change my hypervisors out from what I was running to something new? And so this is going to be kind of a summer long project. I'm not really going to try to tackle this in a weekend. This is going to be something I'm going to look at doing in stages and figuring out what I want to spend for storage. And do I need more VM hosts, or do I have parts lying around my office at work that are being decommissioned that I could then steal to test out clustering. That's really the long and short of it. So it's maintenance, it's cleaning. It was going to be spring cleaning, but then I had some family issues come up, so I had to tend to that, and there went my spring cleaning. So that's going to turn into summer cleaning instead.
So is some of this going to be documented on the Pseudo Show? I know that you've talked about doing some lab-related stuff. Is how you organize it and some of that reorganization going to be part of Pseudo Show?
I would like it to be part of Pseudo Show. I just don't know if it will be appropriate for all audiences by the time that I'm done navigating the mindset that is. But the fun part about that is that hopefully Neil will be able to come up and be a set of physical hands as well as a virtual mind to help me run cable, label things, plug things in, connect it all up, test it out, make sure it's fun, and then rebase some of the applications and projects that I'm doing on that. So I'd love for that to be part of the Pseudo Show, just because you get a glimpse into how my brain works as far as some of that goes. I'm hoping there's a sysadmin out there that says, oh my gosh, I've been in your shoes before. That's so relatable.
Well, don't worry. We can take, as you're actually putting things together, we can mute all of that. Nobody needs to hear the expletives as things break and you're putting stuff together. All of that can be voiceover in the end.
I may also attempt to live stream some of that, including maybe a personal Q&A while I'm on my patio enjoying a cold beverage and some barbecue.
That would be awesome.
Oh, so
that would be awesome. I would love to tune into that.
You're opening up the call me to everybody, so I lose my special line.
She is.
No, you will always have your special line, Nate. Don't worry about that. It's an analog telephone that's red and uses one of those spinny things to dial.
Like I have to wear my.
I remember those.
I have to wear my bump cap too. Don't when I talk. Yeah.
But because of all of the cool smart home projects that you have talked about on this show and beyond, even just you and I personally, I want to take my barbecue thermometer out and make it a smart barbecue thermometer with like an SP32, because I can sit there out in my patio and I can drink cold beverages and play with my dogs and sweat and have a fun time outside. But I'd really like to get a push notification if the inside of that grill exceeds 250 degrees. That would be
okay.
really
So
nice.
We need to talk some more about that post show too, because I love my smoker. I use it all the time, and I would love to have something for that. Absolutely. We need to have deeper conversations about this.
So with that, because I have to give up some of my workbench space for the battery, I'm very lucky that my boss is an electrical engineer by education, and he built his own smart solar storage system. Do not ask me to repeat that. But it's really cool because for pennies on the dollar, he was able to reproduce what some people pay tens of thousands of dollars for some of the commercial companies. That being said, there are warranty implications with my solar company regarding that, so I have to be a little bit mindful. But Nate, you and I may be having a separate conversation.
Okay.
And I can maybe pick your brain a little bit too.
Yeah, so that's something that I did. I paid to have professionals put solar here in my house. They actually went out of business. I had to finish the process and everything. That's a tale for another time. I think I've talked about it a little bit. And so I remember that. I'm going to be implementing solar and battery backup on Cubicle Labs over there, where I normally do the show from. And so I've been looking at options for some time. I don't really have like I cannot allocate the funds yet. They're not ready to be allocated. But I'm looking at various options. And some of these options are, do I want to do a DIY setup? And then I did happen to find one. There's a great channel on YouTube. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but I did put a link in the show notes to a battery option that looks really, really good because it has batteries and inverters. And for the price of building it and then putting it in a nice package like this with the monitoring tools, I probably couldn't do it myself, but the way this looks really good. I'm not certain yet, but this is like the front runner for me, and so I'm hoping to be able to make a decision like probably the next bit of time. I don't know what that time is right now, but at some point in time, because I do need to have battery backup over there. Where I am, there's lots of old growth trees. we do lose power where I am because a tree falls and some power lines. Recently I lost power here at my house, and so wonderfully, the battery was to offset some of my electrical usage. It was already like at 30% discharge. It was down to 30%. So I had to shut some things off. Like, well, we don't need all these things right now. I don't know how long it's going to be because I want to make sure the sump pump keeps running because it's raining pretty good. And anyway, so that was one of the that's something I have to tweak out, whatever. But anyway, I want a solution that will actually work for me as far as something I can work on, work with, and everything else. Now that's I like warranties, but not warranties that lock me in. So that's the other part of it too. So I don't have a good decision. I don't have a decision made on a battery, but I did want to share that link with you because I think more people looking at it and thinking about it would be better. So if you look at it and say, well, I don't like this, Nate, then it gets me looking at other things. So
we should have a follow-up episode where we kind of explore that whole energy storage and Home Assistant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a fantastic idea. Fantastic idea.
That's just me trying to weasel my way back into another show with you guys.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
I mean, poor Matt doesn't even have the chance to step in and say 2 words about this. Sorry, Matt.
Not
sorry.
today, but I'm sure we will hear from him after this show airs, and he'll have all kinds of things to say about it.
Mostly snarky.
I don't know that those particular things. I don't know that those particular things are his forte. Just like, 3D printing, those things he kind of tunes out for, robotics, those things he tunes out for. So this is the perfect show to have when he's not around, is to be able to deep dive into some of those things. Like when I was gone last spring and they talked all things Steam Deck. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, I will fill in for Matt on a game pick. So thanks to Matt, actually, when you hear this, you got me to download the Heroic Games Launcher.
Awesome.
Which has been fantastic. And Heroic, because it can launch Epic Games, got me into a combat flight sim called Metal Storm, which is free to play. So a friend of mine told me about it, and he said, oh, you really should play this game. Oh, wait, I forgot. You run Linux. You won't be able to. And I said, what do I need to run this game? And he said, well, it runs in Epic Games. And I said, I have you covered. I will be joining you in about 10 minutes. And so I brought up Heroic Launcher. I signed into my Epic Games account, and he and I were playing Metal Storm, which is a very quick flight sim. So you don't have to do the whole takeoff and landing. You start off midair with a set of missiles or guns, and you can use a controller or a joystick or a HOTAS if you're really into it. And the matches usually last no more than 3 to 5 minutes. So you can get in and get out as much as you need. You can level up your aircraft. Exactly that. I had one of those, and then it died many moons ago. So now I'm using this, which is a little Logitech USB controller, and I have had countless hours of fun. But if I have to leave quickly, I can get out quickly because a match takes no more than 3 to 5 minutes. So Metal Storm has taken up the few minutes of free time that I have in my busy schedule.
That's fantastic.
That is very nice to have games that you can sit down and play, but you're not worried about, if I have to hurry up and get up and leave, being stuck only halfway through the match or something like that. You know that you have these short possibilities. We'll definitely have to check it out. That isn't necessarily my game forte, but I have kids that would absolutely love something like that. Heck, Magneto, and for any of you who are new to the show, Magneto is my husband. That's the nickname he has been given. And that kind of game is definitely up his alley, without a doubt.
Because he works with metal and he breaks things.
Oh, he does break things. And it's not necessarily the fact that he works with metal. It's that he has a strong enough personal magnetic field that he struggles with watches. He struggles getting Bluetooth to work properly, right? There's a Bluetooth headset, and it's been years ago, I guess not years ago, but episodes ago since I talked about it. But he had this Bluetooth headset that he could not get to work. I connected it to my phone. I was able to put my phone in the kitchen, walk all around the house, have no issues. He reconnects it to his phone, doesn't even leave the room, and it stops working. He just tilts his head wrong, and it doesn't work anymore.
That's awesome.
So he's Magneto in that sense. He messes with fields, Bluetooth fields, electrical fields. That's just who he is.
Magneto. But he's a at least he used to be a welder, right? Or he does a lot of welding.
He still welds.
Okay.
Yeah, he's actually
with metal.
teaching the kids to weld. He will still weld sometimes. He works on different equipment. He said he never wanted to be a mechanic, but here he is a full-time mechanic for forklifts. So,
and he just thinks it, and he's able to bend the metal into shape, right?
yes. Except
there is no metal.
Well, the problem that he's running into is he has days where he never picks up a tool, or jobs where he never picks up a tool. It's all on the tablet. It's all software communication stuff.
Ooh.
And I can tell those days when he comes home because he's pretty grumpy. Yeah.
I understand.
Now, Nate, are you grumpy as you're migrating this Windows VM over to VirtualBox, or is this a positive?
So it's it's positive. So the fact of the matter is there are some applications that I use that just will not run on Linux. And I've been using a Windows 10 VM for some years now. It is one I created on a previous machine that I got with a license for and everything else. So it still has a good license. It's not on the same machine as it once was. I don't know if that's okay, but that's what I'm doing. I still own the machine. Anyway, so I want to migrate. I've been using it on VirtualBox because it works really well on VirtualBox. There's not a whole lot of work you got to do to get it going for Windows 10. Just works so nicely. But with the nature of the work I do right now, I need to use Virtual Machine Manager, Virt Manager, libvirt, whatever you want to call it, KVM, QEMU, but I'm not using the QEMU portion of it. And I have other VMs running, and you cannot run VirtualBox and KVM, or whatever you want to call it, at the same time. If you do, the computer gets very grumpy. Actually, it just won't let you. It gives you a very cross message. So anyway, I migrated. I needed to migrate the VM from a VirtualBox, the VDI image, into a QCOW2 image. That image, or is it an image? Yeah, whatever.
Yes.
So that I could use it with KVM. And now there was a whole other set of issues that brought too, because VirtualBox has a lot of things baked into it that are just that makes it really easy to use. It has the different like automatic resize of window, which actually KVM does that okay now. But then also to integrate like your file system, so you can actually and clipboard to make it bidirectional. It's all very easy to do in VirtualBox, but not with a Windows guest in KVM. So I did a step-by-step process for getting all these things to work. So I essentially have the same experience using KVM as I did using as I did with VirtualBox. There's so many virtuals in this, it's now making my head spin. So,
are you getting tongue-tied with all the virtuals?
Yes. Anyway, so I have a step-by-step process of how to do that.
Thankfully, you have done this on cubiclenate.com so everybody can see exactly what that process looks like, right?
So there's essentially, between reading the QEMU.org docs for how to use QEMU image, IMG, and then I read a couple of articles, and so I pieced all the bits that I needed that worked for me into one article. So it's basically just a remix of other things. And I have those other articles and other sources cited in there. So it's not like I'm coming up with this myself, like I'm some kind of genius, because I'm not. I am, sometimes I'm kind of a knuckle dragger, mouth breather, but I got this to work. Works great. I can rely on it. And so now, if someone else has the same issue, which is kind of an edge case, then they can do the same thing. But that was it. I'm very happy with it. I don't know that I get much more performance. I know that this is it's a class 1 or level 1 virtualizer. Like VirtualBox is level 2, which is software. KVM is at the kernel level, so it's actually closer to hardware. So it's supposed to be better.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
There's a performance increase.
See, and that's been my biggest issues in trying to use a virtual machine is trying to pass through the different hardware and stuff too. And I have to say I've played with it a little bit, but not much, gotten frustrated and kind of dropped it. So maybe through your process, I could get something like that up and running a little bit better. Maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly. The one thing I do have is the automatic, the resize VM with window is not 100%. So it works great on some monitors, but not on other monitors when I go to full screen. I don't know why. I've not ironed that out, but it's also not consistent either.
Right now, all of my monitors are 4K. There's only one that's a different size, and I would probably keep it on one of the main 3 that are all the same size, so that may not be an issue for me.
What is it?
Ensure that you have the guest tools installed in Windows.
Done. All that's done. Like the spice. So the issue is, I think it might be a Wayland issue, actually. And the reason I say that is,
and I'm not running Wayland.
So if I put it on one of my 1080p screens that are scaled at 100%, no problem. If I put it on my main display that's scaled at 125%, it doesn't always rescale it. And I've noticed this as an issue with other applications. So I think this might be a Wayland issue. I don't know for sure. I don't have enough data to say one way or the other. Either way, I have a workaround, so it's close enough to make me not madden me any, and so it's fine. Anyway, it's this has been helpful with the way helped me to work more efficiently from home. So I have 7 monitors in front of me now because 6 wasn't enough. 6 is way 2023, so I got 7 now. Really, I'm looking for an 8th. But anyway, so I have like my Windows VM in one corner. I'll have some other VMs somewhere else, probably a couple of terminals open, email, Teams, chat, and then I'm good to go. And then I have everything right in front of me.
Yeah.
Everything's working great. Someone requests for me to do a specific task that I know I have to do in Windows, because like there's using another problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I can hop into Windows, do what I need to do, and then it doesn't disrupt my workflow. So anyway, I'm very happy I did it, got it done. Working great. Very happy.
I'm just falling behind. I only have 4. You have 6. Wait, did you say 7?
I have 7 now, yeah.
Okay, so I am incredibly behind. I need to tell Magneto that we need more monitors. I have to keep up. Just got to keep up.
I think, though, I'm using DisplayLink for 3 of them, and I think that I don't know how happy the computer is about that. So my one little Framework 13 is pushing 7 monitors. The fans are they're doing their thing right now.
Stressed. Yeah, I know the 3060 Ti is like you're pushing a lot of pixels right now. You're pushing an awful lot of pixels with 4K monitors. 3 of them, what did I say? They're 27 inches, and I have the top one that's 32. So they're pushing a lot of pixels.
Yep, but they like it. They like it's a good exercise, good workout.
Right? Yes. I like lots of pixels, and I cannot lie. You other tech people can't deny.
That's right.
That needs to go on a shirt.
I like big screens, and I cannot lie.
Yeah, I like it.
I have a 49-inch that I'm working off of right now, a Samsung Odyssey, and it's absolutely gorgeous. My one regret is that I don't have a second one above it.
Yes, and that would look awesome if you did. If you had 2 of those massive monitors stacked. Ooh, so pretty.
I toyed with the idea of I wanted to know what 3 would look like side by side, and then I realized that I would be doing a full 180-degree chair turn, and I'd be getting lost. So I thought, it's a bad idea. Maybe just stack one above the other.
2 stacked, and then maybe 2 smaller ones vertical on each side. Yeah.
No, I have to go all out. I would get 2 more of these and put them sideways. So I'd have 2 49s on top and then 2 49s in the side.
That would look amazing. That would look amazing.
That's so expensive.
I like high DP.
Right?
I got high DP and I cannot lie. I'm just trying to think. There's got to be a way we can actually write this thing out.
Oh, there you go. Trying to keep going with that theme. Yeah.
When a nerd walks in with an itty bitty screen, I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter.
No. That doesn't work. It can't be an itty bitty screen, though. You do like smaller screens on your laptop.
Yes.
You're a 13-inch guy
On my laptop. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, before I got into all this IT stuff, I used to dig clams, but I had to stop because I pulled a muscle.
Oh my goodness. Man.
Is Michael here?
It's a surrogate. It's a Michael surrogate. Well, on that bombshell, now it's time to toss in your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse forum by dropping us a line under this video or on the contact form by visiting tuxdigital.com/contact. If you would like to hang out with us on a preferred social media, see the links at the bottom of the show description. Find other great shows like Sudo Show, or is it Sudo? Anyway, Sudo. All right, then I'll purposely say Sudo. No, I'm kidding. Sudo Show, Destination Linux, or Linux Saloon, and more at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite podcast and shows by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. Grab yourself some awesome swag like the gamer-centric I Pause My Game to Be Here shirt, or join #Team Wendy with some sinister Wendy swag. As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, and have fun doing it.